This press conference is being live streamed on the Federation for American Immigration Reform's X account, which is @Fair Immigration. It will also be posted in its entirety on FAIR's YouTube account, which is also @Fair Immigration. I'm going to go through the list of speakers we're going to have today, but I'd also ask you to refrain from asking questions while they're speaking. We're going to allow for questions after the last speaker, so please hold your questions until afterwards. Our first speaker is going to be Dale Wilcox, Executive Director and General Counsel for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Next is Matt O'Brien, Deputy Executive Director. Sheriff Jeff Gaylor, Harford County. Patty Morin, angel mom to Rachel Morin. Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, Frederick County. Tammy Nobles, angel mom to Kayla Hamilton. Sheriff Jim DeWeese, Carroll County. Jim Walden, angel dad and gold star dad to Lance Corporal James R. Walden III. Sheriff Gary Hoffman, Queen Anne's County. Sheriff Matthew Crisafulli, Worcester County. House Minority Leader Jason Buckles, and Sheriff Mike Lewis from Ocomico County. So we're going to start with Dale Wilcox, Executive Director and General Counsel for FAIR.
Good morning. Thank you for coming today. My name is Dale Wilcox, Executive Director and General Counsel for FAIR. Our mission at FAIR is to fight for immigration policies that are in the best interest of Americans. And this includes policies that ensure the safety and security of everyday Americans and legal residents. We are here today to announce that we have filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of 17 of the 24 sheriffs in the state of Maryland against the state of Maryland and against its new so-called Community Trust Act. This law is a dangerous mandate that has effectively turned Maryland into a sanctuary state by prohibiting these sheriffs from working with federal immigration authorities. They have kneecapped these sheriffs. These sheriffs care about their communities. They care about the people in those communities, and they care about crime. And this law has kneecapped them. They desire to enforce the law to its fullest extent and take criminals out of their communities. I'm honored today to stand with these law enforcement officers behind me. Not only are these officers here, but we have angel families here. These angel families have truly paid the highest price. They have been victimized by preventable crimes, full stop, preventable crimes. And I'm proud to stand here with them also to challenge this law, this unconstitutional law. We thank you for attending, and we'll hear from the angel families here shortly. And you'll hear this is just not a legal battle. This is not a debate about public policy, but it's a human battle. It's a human debate. There are real-world consequences when you enact sanctuary laws. Real people lose their lives. I'm honored to be here with those families. And with that, I'll turn this over to FAIR's Deputy Executive Director, former ICE attorney, and former Assistant Immigration Judge, Matthew J. O'Brien.
Good morning, I'm Judge Matt O'Brien. I am here to tell you, based on experience, as an immigration officer with INS, as a trial attorney with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and as an immigration judge, the danger to America's communities is not ICE, and it's not local law enforcement cooperation with ICE. It's foreign criminals. The state of Maryland has passed dangerous and quite possibly unconstitutional legislation that interferes with ICE completing its mission. There's no reason to kneecap ICE. It's not in the business of arresting moms and 5-year-olds. It's in the business of protecting American citizens from foreign criminals. That is the truth of the matter. So I am extremely proud to stand here with these people who have been victims of illegal alien crimes and with law enforcement officers who are attempting to protect the American public from national security and public safety threats. The state of Maryland is not entitled to ignore federal law simply because it doesn't like it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheriff Jeff Gaylor from Harford County, and I first want to thank my fellow, the 16 other sheriffs that are standing here beside me, 17 of the 24 sheriffs in this state joining us this morning, and who have placed their name on this lawsuit to begin to fix the public safety disaster created by some of our state's out-of-touch, criminal-friendly politicians. I also want to acknowledge the legislators, some of whom are with us today, who worked hard to try to prevent this dangerous legislation from passing in the first place, and of course the Angel family members who have had their lives shattered by these terrible sanctuary state policies and our nation's open borders. On Friday, a dangerous line was crossed in the state of Maryland by allowing the so-called Community Trust Act to become law without the governor's signature. Annapolis politicians and Governor Moore have officially turned our state into an ultra-sanctuary state. It wasn't good enough to be a sanctuary jurisdiction. We've now had to move up. And I believe we are now the most friendly and welcoming state for criminal illegal immigrants. I don't know, but perhaps the governor will want to add that to the Welcome to Maryland sign. I want to take a moment and strip away the political spin and look at the reality, the raw reality of the passage, what the passage of this legislation will mean for your family, the families of Maryland here in our state. This legislation is not about trust, and it's certainly not about supporting the law-abiding members of our community. It is an intentional, state-mandated obstruction of public safety. This law deliberately ties the hands of our dedicated local deputies, police officers, and correctional officers. It forbids us from sharing information with federal authorities and prohibits us from honoring immigration detainers, forcing us to release criminal illegal offenders right back into the streets of our Maryland communities. As the sheriff of Harford County, this law puts me and every other sheriff across Maryland in an impossible and entirely unconstitutional position. It forces us to choose between complying with this reckless state mandate or upholding our sworn oaths to the United States Constitution and federal law. That's why we are standing here today to announce that we are drawing a line in the sand. Although the Federation, alongside the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, we have filed a formal federal lawsuit to halt this unconstitutional overreach before it can do irreparable damage to the communities and create more damage for innocent Maryland families. We are taking this to court because we cannot and will not permit ultra-sanctuary state policies to expose our dedicated law enforcement and correctional deputies to federal criminal liability just for doing their jobs. Under federal law, harboring and shielding removable criminal offenders is a crime. Yet Annapolis expects our deputies to do expressly exactly that. We are also taking this to court because the human cost of this legislation is not hypothetical. It is measured in preventable tragedies and the heartbreaking loss of innocent lives right here in our communities, just like we experienced in Harford County with the loss of Rachel Morin, and Patty, her mom, is with us today, and Kayla Hamilton, and her mom, Tammy Nobles, is with us here today. Both ladies taken at the hands of criminal illegal aliens. Annapolis has done it again. They've doubled down on this experiment and pro-criminal support. They have chosen to prioritize the comfort of criminal illegal aliens over the safety of law-abiding Maryland families. Yes, Annapolis may have abandoned its duties to protect you, Maryland families, but as the sheriff in Harford County and as the sheriff standing with me here this morning, we never will. Thank you.
Hello, Mrs. Morin? There's no easy way to tell you this, We found your daughter's body. That was 2.5 years ago. 7 days ago would have been her 40th birthday. She was raped, brutally beaten, murdered, stuffed into a drain pipe. That was my daughter. This happened because the previous administration, the Biden administration, had opened our borders and allowed 20 million illegal immigrants into our country. It happened because the state of Maryland had sanctuary policies that welcomed these same people. Now with this law, no abiding citizen, law-abiding citizen is safe. You, by passing this law, are punishing us. You are allowing criminals to come, to have safe harbor in our state, to recklessly commit crimes, and then treat them with the respect and with the compassion that you fail to give to the victims of these crimes. I ask every mother, look at your child if your child's around. Every father, every husband, every wife, look at your spouse. Now imagine that you have no control over them being murdered and killed in some way. And then knowing that the person, if it's an illegal immigrant, will be able to most likely go free on probation or cashless bail, to be able to commit more crimes. We've seen this happen in other states. We cannot allow this to happen. We must protect our families. These sheriffs here are strong men that are not turning away from telling the truth and standing up for what is true and what is truth. We need to protect our families. We need to abolish this law, however, but we need to do that for the safety of our communities and for our families. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. I've been the tip of the spear of this immigration enforcement effort for 18 years. Until 2 months ago, we had the longest standing 287G of agreement across the country of any sheriff's office. It was very effective. Through that program, we removed 1,884 criminals from our county. So that's gone, that's dead, no longer. So now this piece of legislation, as it stands right now, has handcuffed me totally. I can't make a call to an immigration enforcement officer. I can't allow one into my jail. Prior to this legislation, I had 11 inmates in my jail either awaiting trial or serving sentences for serious felonies, 11 on detainer. Now, because of this law, 9 of those are no longer fit the criteria. So now, when their sentences are up or their trials are adjudicated, I've got to open my doors and allow these criminals, which include defendants of second-degree rape, sexual abuse of minors, drug trafficking, aggravated assault, sexual solicitation of minors. I've got to let these people walk out my door into my community, again, to put my public at risk, maybe to reoffend, maybe not, but you know what? This can't happen. I appreciate FAIR being on board with us and representing us sheriffs to keep our county safe. My job as sheriff is to keep my county safe and to benefit Marylanders. So thank you for being here today. This is a really important message.
My name is Tammy Nobles, and I am the mother of Kayla Hamilton. Kayla was a very loving, funny, and wonderful young lady. She was so excited to celebrate her 20th birthday on July 24th, 2022. Little did she know that 3 days later, she would be dead. She was murdered, raped by a 16-year-old known MS-13 gang member who came across the border seeking asylum. He came across as an unaccompanied alien child. He was able to make his way from the Texas border all the way to Maryland into the same home as Kayla Hamilton. He waited until everybody was gone. He went into her room and he strangled her with a phone charging cord and sexually assaulted her and left her on the floor like trash and took $6 from her wallet. He then went to lunch with his half-brother like nothing happened. This Community Trust Act is absurd and reckless. Kayla was doing nothing wrong. She did not deserve to have her life ripped from her at such a young age. We all need to fight for what is happening in Maryland, because this is not, the Community Trust Act is not a safety. It's not for public safety. It's for illegal immigrants to have a safe haven. And if this law is not abolished, we are going to have a lot more Kaylas and Rachels. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carroll County Sheriff Jim DeWeese. First, I'd like to thank FAIR for taking on this lawsuit, and for any delegate or senator, the governor, anybody that signed on to this legislation that hasn't listened to these angel families speak. It's unconscionable that you would actually pass legislation that is so incredibly restrictive to law enforcement. It's sad that we have to file a federal class action lawsuit to protect the constitutional rights of Marylanders, but yet here we are today doing just that. This legislation puts local jurisdictions that are sworn to uphold the Constitution at odds with the federal government. Simply passing legislation that restricts our ability to communicate with any law enforcement agency in this country sets us back 25 years prior to 9/11. The supermajority in Annapolis believes that if they don't agree with a particular federal administration, they can just pass legislation to violate your constitutional rights. If it wasn't for the brave men and women that are standing behind me, the Maryland General Assembly would continue to put you at risk. The supermajority in Annapolis has no problems with sacrificing you and your families to save an illegal immigrant that's here committing crimes in your neighborhood. This is a total misuse of their legislative authority, and it is clear that no one who voted for this legislation understands their oath to uphold the Constitution. The governor himself said to the sheriffs just last week, this law has unintended negative consequences and needs to be reworked. This law actually creates distrust between law enforcement, corrections, and the immigrant community. In some cases, the very immigrant community that trusted us to incarcerate and work with immigration officers to deport violent offenders will only see them released back into their communities to continue to perpetrate crimes and reoffend. Where does it stop? We're no longer allowed to communicate with immigration officials, ICE. What about drug enforcement? Do we protect drug offenders and drug traffickers, and we pass legislation then to stop us from communicating with DEA? Or better yet, how about pedophiles and people that prey on young children? Let's pass legislation to keep us from working with and communicating with the FBI. When does it actually stop? Annapolis needs to stop making unconstitutional laws, and quite honestly, the governor needs to stop signing them. He knows that this is wrong, and so does the Attorney General. And I'm very optimistic that this lawsuit will give us some injunctive relief, and if not all of the law will be repealed or deemed unconstitutional, a majority of it will, so that we can go back to doing what we are very good at, which is protecting our communities. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Jim Walden. I'm the Angel and Gold Star father of Lance Corporal James R. Walden III, Jimmy Ray. February 24th, 2017, Jimmy had a bad day at work and he decided to go for a ride on his motorcycle to unwind. Unfortunately, coming the other direction at 65 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone was an illegal by the name of Martin Martinez Belinas. He overshot a corner, hit straight in front of Jimmy, killed him instantly, cut his carotid artery. The man got out of the car and stepped over my son's body and ran. It took an hour and a half with a helicopter and dogs to find him. The state of Maryland admitted they knew he was illegal 5 years prior to him killing my son. 2012, he was a known illegal. And in that 5-year time, he'd been in jail 5 times and turned loose back on the street. No Angel family's loss can be called an accident because every one of those deaths was 100% preventable. And they need to be held accountable. And any sanctuary law, any sanctuary policy is a violation and should be abolished. Pure and simple. My son was 21 years old. He was just at the precipice of his life. And it's gone. And his mother's life and my life are forever changed, as the families of these other Angel families. The word closure is used a lot in these cases. There is no closure. There's a semblance of justice, but there is no closure. There will be a hole in my heart for the rest of my life. And I just hope that somebody in this state comes to their senses and fixes this. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I stand before you as an elected sheriff representing the Maryland Sheriff's Association, alongside our dedicated law enforcement partners, elected officials, Angel moms and dads, and concerned citizens. We're here to address a matter of grave importance, the public safety implications of Senate Bill 791, the so-called Community Trust Act. Your elected sheriffs that stand behind me and myself have taken an unwavering oath to protect the people of Maryland, upholding the Constitution and ensuring the safety of every one of our communities. We believe that Senate Bill 791 poses significant risks by undermining the essential cooperation between local law enforcement and federal authorities. This bill creates confusion amongst our deputies and officers on the street and hampers our ability to address legitimate public safety concerns, particularly when it comes to dangerous individuals. Let me be clear to everybody out there. This federal court challenge is not driven by political motives. It is fundamentally about public safety, the rule of law, and our commitment to preventing Maryland from becoming a sanctuary state, where communication and coordination between agencies are unnecessarily hindered here in Maryland. Every day, sheriffs across Maryland strive to build trust with all of our communities while holding violent offenders in our communities accountable. These responsibilities are not mutually exclusive. Public trust and public safety must go hand in hand. We remain steadfast in our commitment to serve every resident of Maryland fairly, professionally, and constitutionally. At the same time, we will continue to advocate for all policies that empower law enforcement to protect our communities and foster cooperation in our public safety partners here at the state and every level. Thank you for your attention to critical issues. Hopefully, together we can make a difference in this.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheriff Matt Crisafulli, the Sheriff for Worcester County, Maryland. I thank everyone for being here, and I thank FAIR for taking on this critical necessity for all Maryland sheriffs. Today, I, along with 16 of my fellow sheriffs, are speaking for James, we are speaking for Rachel, and we are speaking for Kayla, because they no longer have a voice. So we stand united today to speak for them. And not only are we speaking for them, we are speaking for all of the residents and visitors in our respective counties. This issue, ladies and gentlemen, is not about politics, it's about public safety. And we believe that this law directly hampers our ability to effectively safeguard the boundaries of our respective counties. Today, we are seeking that injunctive relief that we feel is a necessity for us to be able to save lives. We will continue to speak for James, for Kayla, and for Rachel. We will continue to say their names, but it's our goal that we do not have to say any other names because of this type of legislation that is hampering us from protecting the people that we were sworn to protect. It's pretty much common that law enforcement organizations work best when they communicate. And you heard my fellow sheriffs make some very poignant remarks today. When we have a lack of communication and it falls through the cracks, that's when these dangerous offenders are going to implement themselves into our communities and further conduct their criminal behaviors. I want to thank everyone behind me for standing up, not only for their counties, but we're standing up for the state of Maryland, ladies and gentlemen, and we're standing up for everyone who lives here so that they do not lose their lives because of dangerous legislation. Thank you, everyone, for your time and being here today.
Good morning. I'm Sheriff Mike Lewis of Wycomico County down on Maryland's Eastern Shore. I would first like for everyone here to hear from my county executive, a woman who has been by our side since day one. This is not just an issue unique to the sheriffs, but it's an issue that's very unique to municipalities across the state of Maryland, and to our county executives, to our councilmen and women. And I would like for you first to hear from my county executive, Ms. Julie Giordano. Madam County Executive.
Good morning, everyone. As the sheriff said, I'm Julie Giordano. I'm the county executive in Wycomico County. And I do believe that this case raises serious and important questions about public safety, local authority, and the ability of counties to effectively support law enforcement operations. For months, counties across Maryland have voiced concerns about real-world impacts that this legislation could have on the communication and cooperation between local agencies and federal partners. Those concerns, as stated, were not political. They're practical. Our responsibility is to protect the people we serve and ensure that law enforcement professionals have clear, workable policies that prioritize safety first. At the end of the day, my administration will continue advocating for policies that support public safety, protect taxpayers, and ensure local governments have a seat at the table when decisions directly affect our communities. And let me be clear, this administration will always stand by and support our law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line every single day to protect the citizens of not only Wycomico County, but the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam County Executive. You know, we're here today, a day that we all dreaded. We saw it coming, but we dreaded the fact that we'd have to be here at a press conference announcing for the first time a federal lawsuit against our governor and Maryland lawmakers. This is the only way we're going to get the relief that we need in our respective jurisdictions and in our counties so we can further protect our men and women. Here we are in Annapolis, Maryland, just 30 miles west of our nation's capital. Our nation's capital. 2 days after we observed Memorial Day 2026, recognized and honored the men and women who sacrificed it all to protect our sovereignty, our safety, our security, and our freedom of a nation. Freedom that is a foundation of our nation. But here we are, an overreaching government, overreaching lawmakers who have further restricted law enforcement's ability to do what we did best, to do what we've done best. We're expected to do this every single day with all of our other federal partners, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, the ATF, the United States Secret Service. Not only are we expected to do it, but it's encouraged, it's condoned by Maryland lawmakers. But when it comes to ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, this is nothing more than partisan politics
over public safety. Literally putting the safety of our men and women in our communities at risk. So within hours after we argued this case here in Annapolis, I held a press conference in Wicomico County where our governor reached out to us and requested to come down for this press conference. Why? Because we were announcing the largest cocaine seizure ever in Wicomico County's history. When a tractor trailer, an 18-wheeler, drove from Southern California, occupied by 2 Guatemalan nationals in our country illegally, and delivered the largest amount of cocaine in Wicomico County's history. A case that we worked on for months with our allied partners over in Worcester County, the Maryland State Police, where I served for 22 years as a Maryland State Trooper, the last 20 years as a sheriff of Wicomico County. So 42 years we've worked these types of cases, but never ever have we seen the Mexican drug trafficking cartels take such a lead in drug trafficking across our country. They are now well entrenched throughout North America. Everything that we're seeing today is coming directly from our neighbor, the Mexican drug trafficking cartels, who now have assumed all transportation risks from the Colombians and getting drugs into and distributed throughout the United States of America. This is pathetic that our government, our General Assembly, that they have turned their backs on not just the American people, but specifically all Marylanders. Partisan politics over public safety. And to have this many sheriffs coalesce in one room for one reason, you'll never see this again. But I hope this is a wake-up call to all Marylanders. What's going on here in Annapolis? They passed this in the 11th hour on the last day of the General Assembly, after we argued and quite frankly thought we had made some inroads with our General Assembly. I spoke with them personally afterward. I really thought we made some inroads, but they did what they do best. They passed this in the 11th hour at the last day to hoodwink everybody in the state of Maryland, especially law enforcement. A complete betrayal to law enforcement. The very men and women that are chosen to protect them every single day, they've turned their backs on us. And it's horrible. And we won't stand by any longer. You may wonder why we chose FAIR. First of all, every sheriff standing up here today has been heavily involved with the Federation of Americans for Immigration Reform for many, many years. Because this is an immigration issue. That's why we have chosen FAIR to lead the charge in this federal litigation in Washington, D.C. Because this is an immigration issue dealing with public safety. That's now very pervasive throughout the country, let alone the state of Maryland. Why is it so bad in Maryland? Because we're a sanctuary state. We are a sanctuary state whether you like it or not. Nobody wants to admit that, but we see it every single day when we're handling cases throughout our respective jurisdictions. We have become a sanctuary state thanks to Maryland's General Assembly. Eric?
Thank you, Sheriffs. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll go ahead and conclude the formal portion of our press conference here this morning. We've got about 10 to 12 minutes left, so if there's questions that the media, members of the media wants to ask to our sheriffs, to our angel families, to members of FAIR, we'll be happy to address those. And then once that's complete, we'll be happy to do stand-up interviews by request. So who wants to start? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Chris Hayek. I represent these sheriffs in this case. The outcome we expect is an injunction by the court blocking the enforcement of this law. Yes, it is based on that. Our nation, through Congress and the President, has decided to have immigration laws and now to enforce them vigorously. And states don't get to set up obstacles to these national purposes through a law like this. That's actually called obstacle preemption, and it violates the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which makes federal law supreme over state law. Well, these sheriffs are accustomed to cooperating with ICE, and when they do that, dangerous criminals are taken off the streets because they're deported. And that's the goal of our immigration laws. And when they're prevented by this law from cooperating, that creates an obstacle. What exactly are you referring to? Oh, yes, that, I'm not sure what he meant by that. It's possible, we'll have to look at that.
Just add on to that thought.
I'm ready, I'm eager to join in too, but I'll let my colleague go first.
We were all discussing.
I will let
happy to-
Sheriff Gaylor go first
I
on
can tell you,
this.
all of us from the Maryland Sheriff's Association asked Governor Moore to veto this piece of terrible legislation. And he even admits there's, in what you're referring to, he admits there's problems and he recognizes there's problems with the bill. Who doesn't veto a bill that has problems in it? Our governor, unfortunately. So I don't think it plays in, I'd leave that for the attorney, but it's certainly, to me, very disappointing that the Maryland sheriffs standing together sent a letter to the governor calling on his veto, and as did the county executive from Wacomico, asking him to veto this terrible bill, and he chose to sit back and let it become law without a signature instead.
And keep in mind, my colleagues and I were on an intimate call and interview with the governor last Friday, per the governor's request. And the governor told us he was not going to veto the bill because he liked certain aspects of the bill. But there were certain things he didn't like about the bill, therefore he wasn't going to sign it. And we quickly asked, then why not veto it, Governor? It's a bad bill. Why not veto it? And we never got a clear answer. Nor did we know at the time we were speaking with the governor that it was going to go into law last Friday. We believed it was likely going to go into law June the 2nd or the 3rd, and we told him that. He never corrected us. Instead, hours later, it goes into law. And we're being notified by the media up here in Baltimore that it's going into law. We didn't know. We thought it was going to law June the 2nd. Our best calculation was June the 2nd to June the 3rd. So yes, the governor is complicit in what you see going on. He could have vetoed this. He vetoes other bills. We expected him to veto it. We were hopeful he was going to veto it, but he didn't. And this was after the governor came down to my press conference in Wycomico County during the announcement of this large cocaine seizure that affects all Marylanders, and stood up and talked about how much he supported law enforcement and public safety and getting criminals off the streets. But he had an opportunity to veto this bill, and he chose not to, much of the disappointment of my colleagues and my county executive. And fair, we don't want to be here today. We've got so many things going on in respective jurisdictions, but we're here because this nonsense up here in Annapolis, Maryland, has to stop. They have overstepped their boundaries when it comes to allowing sheriffs to police our own communities and do what's best in our respective jurisdictions. We are elected by our people to do just that. Lawmakers pass legislation, we're expected to enforce it. We are also not only accustomed, as my representative from FAIR just said, accustomed to enforcing the laws, but we are expected to comply with all state and federal laws, including immigration laws. All we want is to keep dangerous criminals off our streets. And now we've got to turn them all loose. They've changed everything, much against the governor's initial plans for sheriffs and a memorandum and guidance he gave us all. This contradicts everything.
We are short on time, so yeah.
Mackenzie. We'll go ahead. Miss Mackenzie, sir, we'll have Miss Mackenzie Frost, ladies first. Yeah.
Many of our so-called law enforcement officers are supporting a 34-count felon, a convicted rapist, and a pedophile.
So, sir, thank you for your question, and we'll certainly be able to talk to you after that. But I'm gonna let Miss Mackenzie Frost, because we're gonna respect ladies first. Mackenzie Frost, for your question.
Support Donald Trump, all of them.
Yeah, actually, well, no, this law completely, undermines that. But I will say, from an executive standpoint, somebody who vetoes legislation, when bad bills come across my desk, I don't pick and choose and say, well, this piece is okay and I like this piece. It's a bad bill. He failed us. And I work with the Moore-Miller administration, and he failed me, he failed my county, he failed the people in my county, and he failed every single person up here. He had the ability to veto it. You can't come to us and say, well, it just needs to be reworked. When it needs to be reworked, it needs to be vetoed. And then we can come back and look at it. I am very frustrated knowing that as an executive, we have the ability to push this off to the side, to rework it. Reworking it is not allowing it to go into law. And here we are right now, wasting taxpayer money, wasting taxpayer time on a situation that he very much could have handled. And instead, he took the political route and let it go into law. And I'm very frustrated because you can't tell me you support public safety and have allowed that bill to go into law. Sorry, Sheriff, go ahead.
I do want to address Mackenzie's question. Yeah. No, don't know what it would look like. No, we've had no guidance. That is not the legislative process that I'm familiar with in our country or in our state of how a bill should be run. If it's a bad bill, the governor should have vetoed it. You asked about the 287G. The governor was very clear in his letter to the sheriffs back then who participated in 287G that that losing that program didn't really make a difference because it didn't stop our communication with ICE, our federal partners, nor did it prevent us from honoring the 18-hour detainers. This bill does both of those things. So yes, to your question, the sheriffs did express our concern. When we got the letter, we expressed our concern in our veto request to him about this legislation. What it does is something he said would not happen. I certainly do not. Maybe Sheriff Jenkins wants to weigh in. This is the longest operating 287G program. This looked out for, 287G, as we were the second longest program in Maryland in Harford County, looked out for the rights of our citizens, the right to live peacefully and safely and not generate, not create more angel families because of violence committed by criminal illegal aliens. It had nothing to do with law enforcement, and that was part of the false narrative that our legislators down here who chose to come up with the anti-287G and this terrible bill, that was part of the narrative they sent. ICE has made it very clear. Tom Homan has made it very clear. He wants cooperation in jurisdictions where we can turn these criminal offenders over in the safety of a jail facility to ICE, and instead this bill does the direct opposite. It requires ICE to come into the community and make arrests. So again, it's not better for anyone, and you have 17 of Maryland's 24 sheriffs telling you that his public safety message is not correct. Sheriff, do you have anything?
Yep. All right, folks, we're going to take one more behind David. I haven't gotten to you yet.
What's your message for the sheriffs who are not here?
I'll just say I wish they were.
Yeah, I wish they were too, and they're all very good sheriffs, but they're in jurisdictions that make it very difficult. And it's really, in those jurisdictions, it's the jails and the chiefs of police and the county executives that need to step up and jump in on this legislation. They're all quality individuals, so no issue with them. There's an issue with the overarching political structure in those counties and how they created sanctuary counties there. A what? Sure. I mean, listen to what you're saying. So these people, for large part, by the way, they're here illegally. So let's start with that. Then they've committed a crime where they've been convicted of a felony, and then they come into our possession one more time, whether it's in a jail or under arrest. So when does it stop? And when do you stop living the hell that these people behind me are living? Because we continue to leave these people in society instead of doing our job, which is the second that they come into contact with me and they are convicted, that they're deported. So the statement in that's just hyperbole within the law itself. It makes no sense that you've got to wait for someone to be convicted of a violent felony and then they come into your jail or contact with law enforcement again. Then we can work with ICE to have them removed. Makes zero sense whatsoever. It's coddling criminal behavior, and in this case, it's violent criminal behavior.
And I will add, part of the 287G that we heard about, and we heard in Annapolis for years, is that people were being picked up on minor offenses and then deported. They're deported on what ICE knows about them, what our federal partners know about their history, not what particularly brought them into the jail. That's what put them on the radar, but ICE says if they pose a threat to national security or public safety, then they're going to initiate the detainer process. Any of us sheriffs do not want to open that jail door to someone who a federal partner is telling us poses a threat to our citizens' public safety and or national security. So I think that was an effort to try to sell the bill through public opinion, which I don't think they have done in this state, but they did it with their supermajority. And this gentleman's been, from the very beginning, had his hand up. So we're going to, one more question.
Go ahead, yeah, Chuck.
I will tell you this with all sincerity, what this Community Trust Act has done is put the immigrant communities at greater risk than it's ever been in decades. We are now inviting criminals into our counties, into your communities, the immigrant communities. They're typically the victims, and that's so in Frederick County. I know that for a fact. So what this has done is just the opposite of what it was intended to do. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
I think I said it in my statement real quick, is that, like Chuck says, the immigrant community is generally the folks that are going to be the victims of crime. But in a lot of cases, they fled whatever country that they're here from in order to get away from that. And that criminal element shows up here and tries to recreate what they fled from. And so they're contacting us. And in large part, in my community, it's the immigrant community that's quietly saying to us, we don't want that person here. They're committing violent crimes. They're perpetrating domestic assault, those sort of things. So in this particular case now, we can't we're just going to send them right back to the same communities that are calling us and saying, hey, we want these people removed so that they can continue to perpetrate their crimes. So the trust is gone with law enforcement. And we recognize that there are people that are here that are trying to do good things and make a better life for themselves. I will tell you, in law enforcement, that's not who we target by no means. It is the people that are committing crimes within those communities that need to be going to jail and back to the country of origin that they came from so that they stop terrorizing their own immigrant community. So I think that's it. I think we're done with, you got one more?
Thank you, Sheriff. I think that's it.
Well, actually, if I could add one thing. That question comes up all the time, and frankly, I don't understand it. I was an immigration judge because there is a court in the United States that exists solely to evaluate claims that are brought by the federal government against people who are allegedly violating the immigration laws. So, if you're not in violation of the laws of the United States, then you don't have anything to worry about from ICE or any of these gentlemen behind me. If you are breaking the laws, it doesn't matter whether you like it or whether you think that the immigration laws are wrong, you are violating the laws. But the fact is that we spend billions of dollars on due process for people who entered this country without permission in order to make sure that they are not unfairly or improperly removed from the United States.
All right, thank you, folks. We will be happy to take, if you want to talk to any of the sheriffs, the Angel families, or the representatives from FAIR, they'll be available for stand-ups. I know it's 95 degrees in here. I see everybody with their papers, so we'll wrap it at that. Thank you for coming.